Hi, it's Mark Coopersmith with UC Berkeley Haas Marketing Professor Judy Hopelain, and we are continuing our video series on the four P's of marketing. Of course, it's more than four series because we got an intro and an outgo. We even have a bonus that we have recorded around pricing. But right now, we are moving on to our third P, which is place. I'm double checking to make sure I've got it in the right order. Our third P is place. Judy, let's talk a little bit about place when it comes to the four P's of marketing.
Cool. Let me share my screen. Great. The place P, where they buy it, how they get it, right? So we tend to think of the word place connotes a physical place. And we all know that today places are not just physical, they are also virtual. So expand our definition hold that in your mind as we go through this little conversation here. So again, here's our toolkit, and now we're talking about the place P. It's where the product's purchased and how it gets to the customer. And within the place P, we have a number of components, right? Or arrows in our quiver, as I like to say. I'm going to spend a bunch of time on channels. We can talk some about coverage, assortments, locations, and inventory. But those things, again, tend to be more internal within the organization. They're not so customer facing. But we'll talk a little bit about them as well as logistics. When we think about places where we can actually buy product, right? This is continuing with the Apple Watch 7. We can buy it on the website, right? Apple's own channels. Apple has a website. Apple has stores. In the beginning, when the Apple Watch first launched, it was only available online on the Apple website. And in fact, you could go into stores and you could see it, but you couldn't buy it there. They didn't have enough inventory, frankly. So they couldn't afford to put the inventory out in stores. They held it centrally. You could go see it in the store and then order it online. Now, it was oversubscribed immediately, and they just didn't have enough production capacity. And that happens often with startups. They don't know how much demand there's going to be. So better to have too little than too much. And oftentimes, there's a scarcity that sometimes can play to their advantage, as we just talked about when we were having our conversation in the Price P plus little side conversation
Right.
about
There's this element of scarcity and exclusivity.
Exactly,
Right.
exactly. Now, sometimes that's not on purpose, right? Sometimes it's simply a function of not having enough production capacity at launch. So, in any event, regardless, there are your own channels. You can have stores, you can have your own website. In the olden days, there were catalogs. Some brands like Restoration Hardware still do have catalogs, although it's now quite a gigantic, thick magazine. But those are channels that you own and you control. There are also channel partners. So when you think of channel partners, here I just went and got a screen grab from search results when I was looking for the Apple Watch 7. And here you can see a bunch of different places you can buy that watch now, not just from Apple. So they have a variety of partners, and most products ultimately do have multiple distribution channels, right? You may have your own, and as you grow, you may start out online, then you may add bricks and mortar, and then you may add channel partners in order to expand your reach into new geographies as well as potentially to reach new target audiences. So channel expansion is, again, part of that place P. It's putting the product out in more places for more of your target audience to encounter it and buy it so that they can enjoy it.
What I love about these search results is they include some other place elements too. So for example, a few of them say it's available curbside, right, which is a place, but it talks about other elements of value. And one is it's on sale. So part of it is even in these search results, we're seeing elements of the P marketing mix where we're talking about location, place, where we're talking about price, where we're talking about availability, all in a simple screenshot.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's a great point. I'm glad you mentioned that. And even again, pick up today.
Yeah,
Like
pick up today. Exactly.
you don't have to go to the Apple store. You can go to Best Buy and get it
Yeah.
today. And in fact, when you go click in through that, the curbside, so you don't even have to go into the store. They will bring it to you when you pull up right in the parking lot.
Yeah.
And
So
there are new.
that's an increasing element that we're really focused on, but it's a C element, convenience, right? And we're all used to increasing convenience as we're being trained by many of our vendors when we look at channels to expect it immediately and soon, and right here, and pick it up curbside or have it delivered or whatever. But for another video.
Yes, and there was always a buy online, well, not always, but for a long time, buy online, pick up in store. So
Right.
POIS, buy online, PIS, pick up in store. And with the pandemic, the pick up in store then evolved to also get it curbside. We'll bring it out to you because people didn't want to go into stores.
Hmm.
So some of these things, as we've all learned through the pandemic, some of these things have actually turned out to be real advantages that we wouldn't necessarily have even discovered if not for the ingenuity that dealing with a global pandemic required.
Right.
And new types of places have emerged, right? Where commerce is also happening. It's happening in apps. It's happening in email. You can do it on Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest. You can do it in the metaverse. We can buy things in many, many different places, some of which, like I mentioned before, are virtual. It's not all physical anymore. But they still count as the place P because it's where the transaction happens. There's even beyond, when we think more broadly about what the place P includes, like I mentioned at the top, it includes distribution. It includes how the product gets to the store or to the channel in which you're buying it. So if you have stores, it's the locations. And there is a strategy, like we talked about with Apple when they launched, they didn't have enough merchandise to put it in stores because that means you've got to have enough inventory to put around in multiple locations. So you had to choose where you're going to put it. And they put it, again, online only so that you had to buy from central inventory. But you could have also rolled it out to specific stores where you thought there was going to be more likely to be demand, right? So choosing your locations where you're going to put your merchandise. Not all the same products appear in all the same stores. Macy's has a different merchandise assortment in a store in LA than it does in Seattle. Why? Well, the weather's really different.
Hmm.
So they actually merchandise more locally to tailor the offering to what they think is going to be more in demand in each location. So part of locations and inventory is a real merchandising strategy around getting products to the right place so that people who want them can actually buy them. Transportation is also obviously important in terms of getting the product to the channel and then getting it from the channel to the customer. And it's become more and more important as we've seen, because of the pandemic and its impact on logistics and transportation and supply chains overall. And then logistics too, in terms of, can I direct ship it from the vendor to the customer, or does it have to go to the retailer first? So I buy a lot of things online from places that are retailers like Target or Costco or Macy's, but the product actually doesn't come from them. It comes straight from the vendor, right? So it comes straight from that manufacturer to me. So figuring out all of that logistics, that's also behind the scenes from a consumer standpoint, but that's part of the place P in terms of thinking through the distribution chain. Back to you, Mark. Any comments or thoughts?
Oh, so many. So one of the things that's interesting for me, having launched a number of startups, is the decision that you make as to how you are going to get your product to your customer. And we can think about all of these, and you've mentioned a number of them. Some companies have their own retail distribution centers, like The Gap or Banana Republic, and the only place you can buy those products are through their stores. Now, the internet changed that. Most brands now offer products direct from their website or through their stores, or sometimes they won't offer it direct. They'll have authorized resellers that they'll direct you to. So you create these hybrid strategies. Other companies started out as online only. One example is, say, the eyewear company, Warby Parker, that was only online and then started creating its own retail outlets to allow people to touch product and experience that product before they bought it, and went backwards. Amazon's fascinating because they do all of these things, right? They started out disrupting bricks and mortar retail with online only products and sales, and then they bought Whole Foods, and then they started opening all of their different Amazon hybrid types of locations. Now they might be doing that with healthcare. And I guess I use all of these examples to say there's no one way that's necessarily right, because it depends on, for me, who's your customer, what do you have that maybe makes you better to offer something a particular way? Do you have unique logistics capabilities? Do you have a great distributor network? Do you have great customer insights or relationships or whatever that is? So, especially from an entrepreneurship standpoint, making this place decision is a very important strategic decision. That's why it's one of the 4 Ps, and it requires a lot of conversations and understanding of, that 5th P we've talked about, the persona, the customer, as far as how they shop now and maybe how they wish to shop in the future. So those are my thoughts.
I think that's great and absolutely right. And there is no right answer. It's what do you have? What do you bring to the party? And what can you afford? Where do you start? I think as a startup, as an entrepreneur, it's very much around, yeah. What also, what do you do extraordinarily well? Is it that customer interface? What's going to
Yeah.
get that customer experience to be one that you can own, right, and scale?
And in particular, when you're launching as an entrepreneur, you want to highly control those initial customer experiences. You want to tightly limit where your products are available so that you can create a model that eventually can scale. So understanding place, hugely important. Judy, thanks. For all of you who are watching, come back. We have one more P to go. We'll see you in just a little bit.